My name is David Thomas Smith. I retired out as a Navy career counselor, Master Chief, submarine qualified. Once I left there, then I was assigned to Washington, which is kind of like a step back because people tease me about it, And the Washington was the first Polaris missile, actually it was the first attack. And they cut it in half and stuck a missile tube in the middle of it, But, that was the way it worked. So I went back to that for a little bit, worked on that. No real difficulties by then. Like I say, I was kind of like had some senior rank, and even though sometimes people didn't want to respect me, they would respect the uniform. So that's the way it was. Before I went to the Roosevelt, I believe I went to shore duty at Naval Submarine Training Center, which was in Hawaii. I went to instructor duty in Pearl. I was stationed in Hawaii for 8 years, I believe it was. One of those included a tour at the Naval Submarine Training Center where the crews, the Polaris crews would come in. They alternate every 90 days, and they would come through training. They had to go through retraining every 90 days, refresher training. And I was on staff there, and I taught that for about 4 years. Then I grabbed another submarine. I was going to say, now when I went on to Roosevelt, one of the things we did was we crossed the equator, and we had a shellback ceremony, which is kind of like a hazing project they do. And I even have the certificate for that. Now it shows the longitude, it's latitude. Latitude, because latitude goes this way. It shows the latitude, which is obviously equator that you cross, but it doesn't show the latitude. Because if it showed the latitude and longitude, you would have a point of where that submarine crossed the equator, and that would give away a location. They can't do that. So, but that was interesting. That was one of my big things. And I also made E7 Chief Petty Officer on board the Roosevelt. So that was memorial things there. Food was good. Never had bad child in the submarine force. Never ever. And then on the Polaris missile submarines, once I got on those, our steak was always ribeyes, and our lobster was always langoustine. They were tails. We never took whole lobsters because of space consideration. So that was the way it was there. So the final cruise, only thing I can do is say I was looking forward to leaving. That meant that I was going to get to come home and do what we call shore duty, be home with my wife and kids constantly. Wasn't going to have to look at going back to sea anymore. So I was very excited about that. They gave me a going away. One of the things that, when I look back on that, well, actually it happened at Naval Submarine Training Center when I left. Since I was a chief, they had the crew out there and dress whites and ceremony and presentation. And the command master chief, he says, you might not like Chief Smith. He says sometimes he could be a pain in your butt. But one thing I'll say about him, he always made me do my job. And there were times when I didn't want to do my job. He says, but he made me do my job. And to me, that was probably one of the best compliments that I ever received. Because one of the things I learned in the Navy is that this thing called Bupper's Manual, which is how we operate the Navy, it's like our Constitution. It's designed to protect both sides. And a lot of the things that I had to fight for as an individual, benefits and so forth, so on, I had to always refer to the specific instruction as to what authorized me to have that. Because quite often I would ask people, hey, how do I get this? Do I rate it? You don't rate it. You can't get it. And I just took their word for it. Later on, I found out they lied to me for whatever reason. So then I went and I did the Bupper's Manual course on my own, which was out of rate. And then the next time I went with them to specific documentation as to why I wanted it and why I wanted it. And I found out that that's what really helped me throughout my Navy career. It's just being able to hold people accountable. Just hold them accountable.